tonight I'm going to talk a little bit about what I missed most about coming to Zen class. So most of you know me, and you know I took a few years off from attending our Zen classes and practices. But I found balance in my life, and I wanted to return. And one of the things I missed most was the Heart Sutra. And in Zendos and practice centers around the world, we chant the Heart Sutra at nearly every single gathering. And I miss that. And I love to listen to the Heart Sutra. I love to chant it, and I enjoy it. And I think not having practiced Zen for a while helped me understand it better. And I'll go into why. But that's what my lesson tonight is about the Heart Sutra. And it's not going to take that long, I promise. There's only, I think, 3 slides that I created, or 4 total. So it won't take long. Some of it I'll just be reading to you. But it's what the Heart Sutra is meant to tell us and is meant to teach us. And so before I get started, I'm going to read this from, some of you may know about 6 or 7 years ago, maybe a little bit more, Thich Nhat Hanh had done kind of a modern day translation of the Heart Sutra. And in his explanation as to why he thought a new translation was necessary and for teaching people, he wrote this. He said, the Heart Sutra was intended to help the Sarvastivadins relinquish the view of no self and no Dharma. The deepest teaching of the Prajnaparamita is the emptiness of self and the emptiness of Dharma, and not the non-being of self and non-being of Dharma. So that was the reason why he felt it was necessary to try to give a modern translation to it. But I'm going to try to share my screen now, and I'll get into the meat of what I am hoping to talk about. Bear with me just a second. I thought I had this open before. Okay, so the Heart Sutra. The Heart Sutra is about the ultimate wisdom that the Buddha attempted to teach his followers. And that is the ultimate wisdom of dependent origination and dependently arisen phenomena. Was it just a week ago, or was it 2 weeks ago, that Master Myoto gave a talk, and she was talking about this equanimity, the nature of being equanimous. And that's what these 2 principles are about, seeing things as they really are. And that's what the Buddha was trying to teach all of us, was how to see things as they really are. So as I mentioned earlier, Thich Nhat Hanh felt it necessary in his modern version of Zen, mixed with a little bit of his Vietnamese and Chinese heritage, had a few things to say about this. And one of them was, and I'm going to kind of read through this for you, but you can see it on your screen. Hopefully it's not too small for you. Thich Nhat Hanh said, once there was a Zen master who asked his novice monk, tell me about your understanding of the Heart Sutra. And the novice monk joined his palms and replied, I have understood that the 5 skandhas are empty. There are no ears, no eyes, no ears, no nose, no tongue, no body or mind, no form, sound, smells, taste, feelings, or objects of mind. And the 6 consciousnesses do not even exist. The 18 realms of phenomena do not exist. The 12 links of dependent arising do not exist. And even wisdom and attainment do not exist. Do you believe what it says? The master asked. Yes, I truly believe what it says. Come closer to me, the Zen master instructed the novice monk. And when the novice monk drew near, the Zen master immediately used his finger and his thumb and pinched his nose and twisted it. In great agony, the novice cried out, Teacher, you're hurting me. The Zen master looked at the novice and said, just now you said that your nose doesn't exist. But if the nose doesn't exist, then what's hurting? And I think that's a good question, because sometimes when we chant the Heart Sutra, we hear all this about know this, know that, know, and they go through all the skandhas and all the different forms of consciousness that we have. We cut that short and we say no I consciousness, and then there's a ... until no realm of mind consciousness. But that means, what that means is, in the original, it says no eye consciousness, no ear consciousness, no nose consciousness, no mouth consciousness, no mind consciousness, etc. It goes through those senses that we have where we gain our consciousnesses from. And it says there are none of those. But what does that mean? And where is he getting at with that? He's getting at the Buddha's teachings there in their original true form, is getting at this concept of emptiness, not non-existence, but emptiness. And so I like this quote from Thich Nhat Hanh. I really just like the picture, and that's why I put the picture here along with his little story. But I like this quote too, so I decided to put the whole picture and quote on here. When we know that birth and death are together always, we are no longer afraid of dying. And what a great insight that is. And we're going to get into that in a little bit more as we talk about how the Buddha taught dependent origination and dependently arisen phenomena. So in the Pachaya Sutta, which is part of the Samyutta Nikaya, I can't see you guys, but I think you can see me in the bottom corner of your screen. So this is from the Samyutta Nikaya, which is the Pali version. There are many Sanskrit versions as well, but most of them are not translated into English. Most of them are translated from Sanskrit into from the original Sanskrit into Chinese, and all we have of most of those are the Chinese versions that have been translated into other Asian languages, and very few have been translated into the English language. Nevertheless, what I like about Thich Nhat Hanh is he's frequently citing both from the Pali canon and from the Chinese canon of the Sanskrit. And so I really like learning from how he teaches the Dharma. So anyway, in the Pachaya Sutta, Pachaya just means conditions in Pali. And here's what the Buddha says. So at Sawati, the Buddha says, Bhikkhus, I will teach you dependent origination and dependently arisen phenomena. Listen and attend closely, I will speak. Yes, Venerable Sir, those bhikkhus replied. The Blessed One said this, and what bhikkhus is dependent origination? With birth as condition, aging and death comes to be. That's the first key. We're born, therefore we get old and we die. Whether there is an arising of Tathagatas, meaning whether a Buddha comes into the world, or no arising of Tathagatas, meaning there is no Buddha that comes to reveal these things, that element of dependent origination still exists, still persists. The stableness of the Dhamma, the fixed course of the Dhamma, specific conditionality. A Tathagata awakens to this and breaks through to it. Having done so, he explains it, teaches it, proclaims it, establishes it, discloses it, analyzes it, elucidates it. And he says, see, with birth as condition, bhikkhus, aging and death. That's the mission of a Buddha. When the Buddha comes into his or her eon of existence, that's his mission, is to, when this truth of the Dharma is lost, his mission is to rediscover it, to re-comprehend it and understand it, and then to teach it to those that follow him. And as long as that teaching is still there, there's no need for a new Buddha. So there's no need for the Maitreya Buddha to come yet, because we still have these teachings of the Sakyamuni Buddha. When those teachings of the Sakyamuni Buddha are gone, then we will need the Maitreya Buddha to come. Anyway, the Buddha continues, with existence as condition, birth. With clinging as condition, existence. With craving as condition, clinging. With feeling as condition, craving. With contact as condition, feeling. With the 6 sense bases as condition, contact. With name and form as condition, the sixth sense basis. With consciousness as condition, name and form. With volitional formations as condition, consciousness. With ignorance as condition, volitional formations. Whether there is an arising of Tathagatas or no arising of Tathagatas, that element still persists. The stableness of the Dhamma. The fixed course on the Dhamma, specific conditionality. A Tathagata awakens to this and breaks through to it. Having done so, he explains it, teaches it, proclaims it, establishes it, discloses it, and analyzes it, elucidates it. And he says, see, with ignorance as condition, bhikkhus, volitional formations. Thus, bhikkhus, the actuality is in this, the inerrancy, the not otherwiseness, the specific is specific conditionality. This is called dependent origination. And what, bhikkhus, are the dependently arisen phenomena? Aging and death, bhikkhus, is impermanent, conditioned, dependently arisen, subject to destruction, vanishing, fading away, and cessation. Birth is impermanent. Existence is impermanent. Clinging is impermanent. Craving is impermanent. Feeling is impermanent. Contact is impermanent. The six sense bases are impermanent. Name and form is impermanent. Consciousness is impermanent. Volitional formations are impermanent. Ignorance is impermanent. Conditioned, dependently arisen, subject to destruction, vanishing, fading away, and cessation. These bhikkhus are called the dependently arisen phenomena. When, bhikkhus, a noble disciple has clearly seen with correct wisdom, mind you, and we gain wisdom through the Noble Eightfold Path, remember that. With correct wisdom, as it really is, this dependent origination and these dependently arisen phenomena, it is impossible that he will run back into the past thinking, did I exist in the past? Did I not exist in the past? What was I in the past? How was I in the past? Having been what? I did not. Having been what? What did I become in the past? Or that he will run forward into the future thinking, will I exist in the future? Will I not exist in the future? What will I be in the future? How will I be in the future? Having been what will I become in the future? Or that he will now be inwardly confused about this present. Thus, do I exist? Do I not exist? Does that not hurt when the Zen master twists my nose? What am I? How am I? This being, where it has come from, and where will it go? For what reason is this impossible? Because the noble disciple has clearly seen with correct wisdom as it really is, this dependent origination and these dependently arisen phenomena. If I can close that. Oh, I'm not trying to leave the meeting. Stop share. There. Okay. So what I really liked about this and how it tied into Thich Nhat Hanh was that Thich Nhat Hanh was trying to explain that the ultimate wisdom of the Heart Sutra was not trying to teach about non-existence, but it was just trying to teach about emptiness. And what is that emptiness? It's that emptiness that anything that exists of its own. It's that emptiness that this being sitting in front of you now talking to you is going to be the same person today that I was 10 years ago, or that I was 10 millennia ago, or that I will be the same person that I will be that same person in a minute, in 6 years, in 100 years, or whatever, that none of those things independently exist. And that's why they're empty. And that's what he's trying to teach. Thich Nhat Hanh did a wonderful job of teaching this throughout his whole life. And most of you probably know he had a horrible stroke a few years ago, and they let him go back to Vietnam. And he's basically, he said he was going back home to die. But he's pretty much an invalid there now. But boy, during his lifetime, what a great teacher he was. And one of the things that he loved to teach about was that people, that all of us, nature, everything around us, that we all enter are. that subject of interbeing. And that too is all part of the Heart Sutra. That one thing leads to another, that there's no reason to fear death if you really understand that with all life comes death, that with all death comes rebirth. It's all a cycle. And only when the Buddhas come into the world and they sort that all out for us and teach us their teachings, do we then have the option of liberation, or we seek rebirth as bodhisattvas so that we can continue to spread that message to other people. And those are not necessarily diametrically opposed positions, but they should comfort all of us in understanding where we sit in this realm of existence. So there was just one other thing I wanted to share with you, and then I'll stop and we can meditate. But there's another sutta in the Samyutta Nikaya. And let me see if I can turn to it real fast. And I shared that with you guys briefly, and maybe someday I'll go into more detail about it with you. But the sutta that immediately follows that one about the robe is called After Death. And I'm just going to summarize this one for you. But on one occasion, there was the Venerable Mahakashapa and the Venerable Shariputta were dwelling in Varanasi in the deer park, and they had come together and they were talking, and they had sat down together, and Shariputta asked this question. He says, "How is it, friend Kashapa? Does the Tathagata exist after death?" And then he kind of goes on and asks, and he says, how is it that the Tathagata both exist and doesn't exist after death? How is it, and again, by the Tathagata, they're talking about the Buddha. Does the Buddha exist after death? Does he not exist after death? What did he teach us about this? Does he, what has he declared? That he does exist or that he doesn't exist? And what has he told us? And he kind of goes into this, and this is what Mahakashapa said, and this is what the Buddha said was a wonderful explanation. Why hasn't the Blessed One declared this to us? Because this is unbeneficial, irrelevant to the fundamentals of the holy life, and does not lead to revulsion, to dispassion, to cessation, to peace, to direct knowledge, to enlightenment, to nirvana. Therefore, the Blessed One has not talked about this. The Blessed One, dear friend, has declared, this is suffering. This is the origin of suffering. This is the cessation of suffering. This is the way leading to the cessation of suffering. And why, friend, has the Blessed One declared this? Because this is beneficial, relevant to the fundamentals of the holy life, leads to revulsion, to dispassion, to cessation, to peace, to direct knowledge, to enlightenment, to nirvana. All of those things boil down to what do we need to worry about? What's happening after life? Did the Buddha exist? Does he not exist after life? It doesn't matter. All that matters are the Four Noble Truths. And in the Four Noble Truths, we learn that the root of all those things the Buddha teaches us, as we learn in the Heart Sutra, is the emptiness of all things, that dependent origination and the dependent arising phenomena. So thank you, guys. That's my Dharma talk for tonight. I hope it sheds a little light for you on what dependent origination is and dependently arisen phenomena. But that's what the Heart Sutra is really about. And I miss that. And I'm happy to come and practice with you guys again. And thank you for allowing me to share my thoughts on that.
Prajnaparamita mantra, which is essentially the heart of the mantra itself. And I believe the gate is usually translated as gone, but I think a more accurate translation is going. So an important part of it for me, I think, is it's gate, gate, paragate, parasam, gate, bodhi, swaha. It's letting go, gate, letting go, gate, paragate, letting go a little more, parasam, gate, letting go of that which is letting go, and let go of what it's letting go of, suchness. It's the destruction of delusion.
Wow, I like that. I like that. I've never heard it described like that. It's really cool.
It's from something that I've been reading. I mean, it didn't pop out of my head. It went into my head, and I can't recall the guy's name, but I was like, whoa, this is interesting.
Yeah, I like that.
I like that too.
Very good.
I like that too. We could definitely talk about emptiness in the Heart Sutra for hours.
Oh, yeah, the Heart Sutra is awesome. And Tom, thank you. You just did a great job. Thank you.
I hope to see everyone next week for another interesting topic. And by the way, if you guys have interesting topics, just email me or Miyoto, and then we can talk about those things too. Why not? You know?
Very cool.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm always looking for good topics for Dharma talks. So yeah, feel free to suggest.
Awesome.
All right, everybody. Have a good week.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.